Hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze with Jenna Blum. And as you're probably all tired of hearing me say this every week, A Mighty Blaze was started when the pandemic started, and every single writer I know, including myself, got locked out of our tours. Bookstores were shuttered. Readers had no way to connect with writers. It was just a mess. And A Mighty Blaze is now going into its 5th year. We say it's a toddler. It's entering kindergarten. So thank you all for your support. I want to tell you all that we have a chat on the right. If you have any questions for our guest tonight, please put them there. I also have made it easy for you to buy all of our guests' books at your favorite indie, or you can just go to bookshop.org and find it there. So today is really special. This is one of my favorite writers of all times. Richard Price. I want to show you this book, The Wanderers, which is way back from the 80s. It's $2 and
1974.
Oh, I'm wrong. It's $2.25, and it says it's the Defiant Street epic. This is like an unbelievable book. I followed Richard's career through all of his books, and especially his latest, which is just magnificent, Lazarus Man. We're going to be talking about that today and a whole lot of other things. So let me just talk a little bit about Richard first, and then I'm going to let him talk, and I will shut up. Okay, Richard Price is the author of many novels, including Lazarus Man, Clockers, Lush Life, all of which have won universal praise for their vividly edged portraits of urban America. He's written for TV, including The Night Of, The Deuce, and The Wire, as well as numerous screenplays, including Sea of Love, Ransom, and The Color of Money, directed by none other than Martin Scorsese, for which he received a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. He lives in Manhattan with his wife, the superb novelist Lorraine Adams. And you should read her books too, and you can also order Lorraine's books at bookshop.org. Lazarus Man is set in 2008. It's about a Harlem tenement that blows up. But that's not the main thrust of the story. The book is really about how it impacts the lives of 4 people: a detective, a young guy trying to become a photographer, a funeral director looking for clients, and Anthony, the Lazarus Man, who's pulled from the debris. Just going to read you some raves. The LA Times, gritty and compassionate. Price has an ear for streetwise dialogue and an eye for description. The Washington Post, the strangest of urban thrillers, a thoughtful, even peaceful story about stumbling into a new life. The San Francisco Chronicle, his books, including Lazarus Man, are masterworks of character, atmosphere, symbolism, and whatever else those scribes might throw at you. Price remains one of the most rewarding, compulsively readable fiction writers around. Slate says endearingly vibrant. And finally, from Kirkus, for all the darkness in the novel, there's a sense of transcendence in the Harlem community's shared experience and survivor's spirit. An affecting novel by a literary urbanologist in top form. Welcome, Richard Price. Thank you so much for coming on The Blaze.
Well, I like that intro.
Thank you. Don't you want to t-shirt? Yes, you can. You can. I always feel like maybe you should have it tattooed on your forehead. So anyway, this book, Lazarus, I want to show the gorgeous cover, which is totally beautiful. This book is your first in 10 years. And I, of course, inquisitive soul, want to know why. Why did it take you 10 years? Was it terrifying to write? And what did you feel was pushing you to write it?
Well, it's more like what wasn't pushing me to not write, or maybe that's a double negative. I was involved in a new relationship, which took about 2 years to see straight. Let's see, COVID. I like to go out on the street and talk to people, which is, my wife, Lorraine Adams, calls it reporting the novel. If all you know is what you know and you want to know more, go out and learn more. And that becomes what you know. So I couldn't do that for 2 years, which for me was like writing in handcuffs. I had to make money. I did a lot of TV series. I did, and also I was afraid of my book. I mean, I didn't know if I could pull it off or not.
I have to stop you there because that's an extraordinary thing that you just said, that you were afraid of the book. You didn't know if you could pull it off.
Mhm.
I think that's something that every writer feels, but a lot of writers don't talk about it. They won't say, and one would think that with all your huge successes and you're so well known, that nothing would make you afraid in terms of writing. So do you think it's a good thing to be afraid, to be unsure of what you're writing, because then you're sort of forced to go deeper?
Well, it's miserable. I mean, this is because instead of writing, you're worrying about whether your writing is good enough,
Right.
and then you feel like, oh, this is the one they're going to find out what a phony I am,
Do you still
and that
feel
never
that?
goes away.
It never
Oh,
goes
yeah.
away for
I read
you.
20 novels, I'll feel that way. Everyone
Wow.
feels like, oh, I've never been here before. And guess what? You have, like, for me, 9 times.
That's what I call writer's amnesia.
Yeah.
Writer's amnesia. Okay, that's really, really interesting. I want to know what started you writing in the first place, because you grew up working class in the Bronx. Were the people were you in a sort of tough neighborhood, or were the people you hung around with tough? Were they like,
They were
the
tougher
Ducky
than me
boys?
as a rule. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I would, when you see these by the book in the New York Times, you say, what kind of reader were you as a child? They go, oh, voracious. I read toothpaste contents. I read it in Japanese and I didn't understand it, but it was on the back of a cereal box. And I was kind of like that. And my grandfather, who was a factory worker in Brooklyn, he used to write poetry and little short stories that would be published in like magazines, like the YMHA magazine, which is put together with a staple. And my father really revered his father because he could write, and I want some of that. I want to be revered. Well, not revered, but I want something that makes me feel like I'm not a bozo or a loser, like every pre-adolescent and adolescent.
Right.
Everybody is fabulous except me. And so you try to get in those best categories: best dancer, best hair, toughest kid, best athlete. Most likely, I just wanted to be known as the best writer. But I was, just had my grandfather. I love to read. And I guess I started writing.
But so you didn't have any training? You just sort of discovered it as you were writing?
Well, I went to elementary school. I learned the alphabet.
Right.
I could recite it in order if you want.
No, that's okay. So I want to talk about the book. The book begins with an explosion of a building that changes 4 different lives. And what's your connection to that what was your connection to that building? And now that you've written this book, is your connection to that building different? Do you still walk by there? And when you walk by there, do you feel your characters are still there?
Well, first of all my characters are fictional. My building collapse inspired or provoked by a real building collapse on Park and 116th Street in 2014. I lived, 15 blocks north, and I felt the boom, in my bones. And I went down there. What the hell was that? And when I went down there, it was just chaos. And it wasn't like, aha, this is it. I'll write about this. It stuck with me. You go out, you see things. What sticks with you? Why did it stick with you? Get working.
Right. Do you ever suffer writer's block, or do you ever feel like there's, like you're looking for a subject and then it suddenly comes up on you, or does it take a long time?
Yeah. I mean, I'm years between books, but mainly I suffer from writer's fiduciary, which is you wake up, you have to have coffee. Then, oh no, I need a fresh something. Let's go out and have a fresh thing. Oh wait, but I need better shoelaces for my sneakers. So let me go online to get, by the time you're up there writing, it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you panic and you write for 3 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours.
I'm really glad you're
writing every day.
I'm glad that you said that too. That's another important thing for writers to realize, that some days you're just watching horror movies all day on YouTube instead of working. So what made you become Yeah, it's really good. And by the way, I just saw Fresh on Hulu. It's a really smart horror movie if you like horror movies. Okay, so what made you become a screenwriter? Because screenwriting is really collaborative, and
Yeah.
writing a novel is much more solitary. So this is like a 6-part question. So let's just take it apart at a time. So what made you want to become a screenwriter?
Well, I didn't have a burning desire to be a screenwriter whatsoever. To aspire to be a screenwriter is like aspiring to be the vice president. I mean, but when I wrote my first couple of books, they were read, and they responded to my dialogue. They said, "Oh, this guy really has an ear." So I bet you'll be a great screenwriter. But it was nonsense because screenwriting is not about dialogue. It's about shaping something. I mean, the actors will give you a good dialogue. If they don't like what you wrote, they'll say something else that makes them more comfortable, and the director will opt for a better performance. So, but I didn't know what I was getting into, and I needed money. And it's also what you said, which is that writing is such an isolated thing, and
Right.
To work on a script that you're getting paid by other people who are expecting this and expect to go on with this with your help. That's my social life. That was my social life. And you learn how it goes, and all the different ways that it's going to fall apart despite whatever you do. And all of a sudden, you walk into a bodega and you came out with $1 million check from the lottery. It could happen. But basically it was, I need the money. And then it was exciting in the beginning. I'm working with Scorsese, Pacino, De Niro, wow. But for every script that went all the way, there were 5 that died.
I forget where I read it or I heard it in an interview where you said something about where you were doing a table read of a script, and I think it was De Niro was there, and he's listening.
Yeah. No, it's hilarious because this is for a screenwriter, a table read is learning by humiliation, because the written word is not the same as the spoken word. So when you're a written word person, it's always a little unnatural. It's always a little quote unquote written. And it was for Mad Dog and Glory, where De Niro was playing a crime scene photographer.
Right, I know that.
And he had a monologue, and I thought it was beautiful. But about halfway through, he just started saying, "Am I still talking here?" And it's like, Martin Scorsese used to say, the most minimal amount of dialogue is too much. I mean,
wow.
It's not,
okay.
You don't hold the script up to the screen, follow the bouncing ball. It's you're listening, you're watching, you're not reading.
Right. How do you feel about the movies that have been made from your books? I mean, did you like the movie of The Wanderers? I know you worked on movies like The Night Of, which was extraordinary, and people say all you have to do is turn on the wire and there's your dialogue. They can tell when it's a Richard Price line. Was it difficult to get everything you wanted into your scripts and then to see actors transform it even more?
It's very tricky because the writer is the first person in on a movie.
Okay.
And then on top of it, so I always use the metaphor of colored gels. Let's say you're the first one in and the first one out, and you put your script, which is a red gel, over a light. Here comes the actors. They have yellow gels. So now you got yellow over red. Here comes the director. He has a green gel. Here comes the editing room. It's a purple gel. Here comes the studio. And, that's a plaid gel. How much of the yellow, the original color, which is the script, will show up at the top of that Crayola box? Sometimes it depends who you're working with and how important they think what you wrote. Should it be by the book? I like this. I don't want any variation. Or, no, I got another take on it. Thank you for the script. We're going. And I'm in the theater. So who wrote this? Another time it's like, oh my God, they actually said it.
That's incredible. That must be quite a feeling. I want to talk about like living with a creative person. You live with the writer Lorraine Adams. I always feel that creative people need to be with creative people because nobody else understands why you'd eat half a pound of cookies while just staring at the screen. So what's it like for you living with another writer? Do you read each other's work or do you wait until it's done?
Actually, I get too self-conscious, because it's my beloved wife. If I have anything I want to say that's not praise, I can't think straight if I'm intimate with a person. They can't,
Right.
But living with another writer or living with another artist in any art form, there's a shorthand for what you value in life. There's a shorthand for what to do with your perceptions. I've never lived with anybody but creative people. And I don't know, I have a harmony with Lorraine. We've been talking every night about some facet of memory, family history, creative projects. I mean, I never talk to anybody like this as much. It's shop talk, but it's also love talk.
Yeah, that's right. It's the language. It's your love language.
We could go over the same anecdotes, the time my father, blah, blah. But every time we talk about it, something like a nugget of newness pops up. And sometimes you know the story so well that just a tiny bit, iota of memory seems like a mountain just dropped on your screen.
I just wrote down revision because that sounds just like making novel revisions where you know the story and you're on your 18th draft and you go back and all of a sudden nuance
Except the
up.
stories that we tell each other are basically our biographies.
Right.
But that's a story too, because who knows how much of a remembered biography is, now fiction.
That's right. I wanted to ask you, do you think there are so many little moments of rebirth in Lazarus Man that are just incredible? And I wanted to ask you, I think I know how you're going to answer it, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you think we all have these Lazarus moments like all the time? And sometimes we ignore them?
I'm having one right now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. No, I think since I began living with Lorraine, it's like I felt like, who am I? I just felt like, what? Wait a minute. I'm 7. No, I can't be 7. No, I'm 20. No, I am 7. No, but it feels like 20. And it's just, it's sort of like a rebirth of gratitude in life.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about getting older, that you realize you're all those ages at once in some form or another.
I mean, if Lorraine is 10 years younger than me, but if I met her when she was in her 20s and I was in her 30s, it wouldn't have worked because we didn't know enough. We didn't know enough about life. We didn't have enough frame of reference, I know this, when this happens, this. And it's the same thing with writing. I'm sorry, Dave.
No, that's right. I was just going to say, I married late in life too. And my second marriage was later in life, and it made all the difference. It was sort of like all my wild stuff was gone, and it's like you have a patina or something. So I wanted to ask you, I also heard this astounding thing that you don't like to write. Is that true?
No. Well, who does? I mean,
sometimes I do.
I find writing very stressful and very self-conscious. I mean, when I wrote my first book, I was a writer. After that, I was an author. And the minute the word author replaces the word writer, depending on what your personality, what your weaknesses are, writing becomes tougher because you're second guessing yourself, and your frame of reference is how much they like the other book, and you feel, they're not going to say anything like that about this one. Oh no, what am I going to do? My life is over. How old are you? 28. But I just feel like this. You are who you are in that sense. I've never mastered the art of like, I'm just going to write. I mean, I'm sure the writers who have that confidence are legion, but I am not one of them.
Okay. I have to say, Richard, you're so down to earth and real and funny and smart. How come you don't have a huge head from all your reviews and all the praise on you? I mean, you don't. I mean, there are some writers who they come on the blaze, and there's a mystique about them in a wall, and they don't let you penetrate that wall.
Well, listen, when I was younger and less knowing of myself, and how I'm sure I was a 4-star jerk, you know.
Okay.
And it's about, the more you know who you are, the less frantic you are to show everybody you're big. I come from a family. My mother was like, the whole point is to blow people away. Be the best Meyerson of the housing project. Be the and I didn't realize how much that was instilled in me, even though as I talk about it now, it sounds, utterly destructive. And when I went away to college, when my early years, I'm sure I had that thing. I've got to impress you. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
As you get older, it's like it's embarrassing.
Okay, we talked about 2 of these next questions before we got on here, but your answers were so great. I want everybody to hear them. My basic question was, how did you not get killed during research? Can you please tell the people thinking you were a cop story for everybody?
Well, I was running around when I was doing clockers. I was running around with various police units in Jersey City, and one of them was the housing police, the height of the crack epidemic. And the housing cops, all they did was try to, squeeze crack crews. But the kids were smart. They were smart, but the kids were smarter. They never found anything on anybody. So I wound up hanging out with the drug dealers, because the drug dealers had to listen to the cops, because the cops were already arrested twice and had the third strike in the cop's back pocket. So you have to do what that cop says, otherwise you're going to see walls for the rest of your life. So he said, "Take care, Richard." So he brought me to a housing project about 4 a.m. Now the cops knock off, the housing cops knock off at about 10, and they know that. So it's like an open market after 10. And the guy who brought me over was part of that world, and he was gonna let me do the talking. I'll do the talking. I'll introduce you. But then he saw this one. I think he saw the last female in Jersey City he had not impregnated, and that's a priority. So I'm by myself, and all these kids that saw me day after day with the housing cops. They said, "He's a cop, Frank. You brought over a cop." We go, no. And they were running towards me, and they all had their hands in their waistbands, and chains were jammed.
Oh, God.
And the guy that was running the cruise, a big guy, big teenager, about 400-pound teenager, and he came over, and I had a ladies' man or one of my books with me, and I held it up. "Look, no, I'm a writer. And he grabbed the book out of my hand, and he sat down on the hood of the car, and the back of the car went up, because he was about 400 pounds. And he looked at the book, and he flipped to the last page and recited the page number, 262. "What the hell do you know for 260 pages?" And I said, "Well, not as much as I'd like to. That's why I'm coming around." And he said, "All right." And he took me up in the projects to an apartment that was a heroin shooting gallery. And this is the height of the intravenous AIDS. And everybody in there was like, it was like they were dead, but their eyes were still open. And he let me just hang there. And yeah, that was a scary moment.
That's incredible. We actually have an audience question for you. The Atlantic said that you reject the tropes of contemporary literature. Why and how? And I would want to add to that question. What do you consider the tropes of contemporary literature?
Ask her a question that comes before that. What do they mean by contemporary literature?
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
alone the tropes of it. Are we talking about Vaguely Unhappy in Connecticut, or it's like who? I mean, you got that post World War II. The soul death of the 50s, I guess. But where that's moved on, if it's become more, meta novels, people
Right.
participating in their books. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the tropes are. I'd like to know what they think the tropes are, because I don't know how to answer it.
All right, let me write that out and see if they respond to that. Hold on. What are the tropes of? Whoops, my typing is terrible. Tropes of modern lit. Okay, we'll see if they respond. Okay, in the meantime, I want to ask you, I also read somewhere that when you're writing, a lot of times you don't plan things out. You might just write scenes and put them on the floor and try to think, this would go good with there. Is that true?
It's like I know the world I want to write. First thing I do is I know the world I want to write about.
Okay.
And I start writing scenes, but I don't know how this thing is going to all come together. I use this metaphor that I feel like, well, I know the street, but I don't have the house number quite yet. And it could take years to get the house number, but I know this is the world I want to write about. It's like looking for a central event that would pull all this stuff together. And one of the reasons why a lot of my books are considered police procedurals, which technically they are, but they're not, that when you have a story that's panoramic, like Lush Life is about the Lower East Side, or Lazarus Man is about East Harlem. There's so many voices and so many avenues. Like, who's East Harlem? Who's Lower East Side? The old Jewish guys, Lower East Side? Is it the NYU graduates, slumming? Is it people in the projects? Is it the police? Is it the Asians that, came from food junk? So I'm starting to think, what can pull these things together? And what I discovered is that if you have a criminal investigation, it's orderly and things follow one after another. And in an investigation, well, you got to talk to this person because they might have seen it. They got to talk to this person because they're a relative of the victim. You might talk to this person because they're the mother of the perp. And you wind up, you can pull anybody you want, and it's going to move forward, because that's what an investigation is supposed to do. Even if it's unsuccessful, that's what an investigation is supposed to do.
Do you have your sights set on another New York City neighborhood for your next book?
Yeah. Listen, I can't imagine writing about Colorado, but it will be, it will be. Listen, you write about, the older you get, the you realize the more you just write about what you want to write about, because that's what you're going to write best. If you go off somewhere because you want to show how versatile you are, or, just your character, location, geography is a very important character. And that's, to me, that's the canvas. If I have to have a canvas, on coastal California, I'm dead. I don't know anything. I don't feel anything for that world. I feel everything for this world.
Right. Plus, if you visited that world, you'd be the fish out of the water there.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have two more questions that I always ask. The first one is because it says more about me than about the writer I'm asking. What's obsessing you now, and why? Other than politics.
Well, no, I don't read newspapers anymore, except for, I have to go past the first 5 pages.
Oh, yeah.
What's obsessing me? In my personal life, I'm a grandfather for the first time. I have 5-month-old. But, and my other daughter is supposed to drop on New Year's.
Oh, that's incredible.
I've gone from a guy with kids to a grand guy with kids who have kids. But the
Incredible.
thing is, I don't want to be called grandpa. It's just too.
Yeah, what's your grandfather name?
Well, my daughter decided that baby's going to call me Book Pa.
Oh, I like that.
But that doesn't mean the baby's going to call me Book Pa because she won't be able to pronounce that.
That's
She'll call me
right.
blah, 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 Book Pa. Yeah. So, the best laid plans, But I just don't want to be grandpa because I know my grandpas and I'm not like that.
Yeah, no, grandpa, grandma,
like
no. No, I haven't decided like my name yet, but my son has to get married first and decide to have kids before I get a grandpa.
And Lorraine, who I married, but is not the mother of my daughters. Her name is now Nana Ditter.
Oh, I like that.
Nana,
That's nice.
because when she grew up, her family were coal miners in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And Nana was what she called her grandmother. And Ditter is what her brother, when he was born, couldn't pronounce sister. So he said Ditter. So she wants to be Nana Ditter.
I love it.
It's like a hybrid that has tons of biography in it.
Okay, so my very last question is, what do you do for fun? I found that I asked that question for the first time a couple of interviews ago, and the person was surprised. And as soon as I saw them surprised, I thought, that's a good
my
question.
first response is, fun? What's that, something to eat? Hanging out with Lorraine.
That's great.
I probably watch more TV than I've done since I was a teenager because it's just, I could do whatever, but I like hanging out with Lorraine. I don't like writing, but I do write. And once I get a role going, I like writing, but it takes a nightmare.
Do you go to the movies?
Nah. COVID knocked the movie out of me. It's too easy to watch on this screen.
I know. It's so sad. It's so sad.
I don't buy books anymore either for the same reason. I read ebooks. First of all, I don't need room for any books anymore.
Right.
So I'll only buy rare, not rare like Gutenberg Bible rare, but first editions of something that I have a personal memory of reading, at a younger age. But
Oh, I thought of one more.
Lorraine, that's it.
I thought of one more question. What do you think? This has nothing to do with anything, but I'm very curious what everybody thinks about it. Do you want to have one of those robots that Elon Musk built? And if so, why?
Well, first of all, what does the robot do?
If supposedly it can do whatever you want it to do. Supposedly it can cook dinner. It can carry packages. Some people have thought that it could set fire to your house. It does talk.
I have no idea. My idea of a robot is like Robbie the Robot, a towboy in 1950. Why? Listen, if I had a pool and I had a robot pool cleaner, sure. But
Okay.
If I had a robot chef, what am I going to have for dinner? Scrambled batteries? Not a robot. What?
Okay, so this is a time where I remind everybody. First, I thank everybody for showing up. Tell your friends. They can always watch this again on our YouTube station, and it will be a podcast in a few months. I want to thank everybody who came here, who asked questions. Don't forget, bookshop.org. Buy your books there. You can buy ebooks there too, I believe. I want to thank Richard Price so much for being here.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, you're not going to leave yet. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, but you stay so I can say a proper goodbye. Thank you all so much for showing up here, and I'll see you all next time. And Richard, you just hang out for a second. Bye, everybody.